Hello. Welcome back to this month's small group series on Fruit of the Spirit. This month might start to feel like a checklist. Last week, we needed to work on peace. This week is gentleness. What's my next task? But thinking that way will start us down the wrong track. The fruit of the Spirit is the result of the Spirit working in us. Only by abiding in Him and trusting in Him to do the hard work of transformation can we bear fruit. Jesus taught that the genuineness of His followers would be demonstrated by good fruit from their lives. That fruit would show itself as part of their character, woven into their natural daily lives. So what fruit are we going to discuss this week? Gentleness. When we hear the word gentleness, we may often associate it with being shy or soft-spoken. Perhaps a certain person comes to mind when you think of this word. But let's dig a little deeper. The Greek word for gentleness is preutos, which is defined as meekness and means strength under control. Therefore, gentleness is not weakness, but strength. It is a fruit of the Spirit that enables a believer to place the will of God before their own. When we look at Jesus, our greatest example, we see that He constantly subjected His unfathomable power to the will of His Father. Jesus' gentleness, His strength under control, is displayed in John 18, when the soldiers and Pharisees came to arrest Him. Right away, in defense of Jesus, Peter draws a sword and cuts off the ear of the high priest's servant. Jesus tells Peter to put away his sword and asks, "Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me?" Peter's emotions takes over in this moment, whereas Jesus submits his power to his Father's will. We all have the strength of our own free will. However, with the gift of the Holy Spirit, we are empowered to submit our strength to the greater strength and purposes of God. Rather than shyness or weakness, the fruit of gentleness calls us to be surrendered. A Christ-like gentleness is not clutching and grabbing for control. It is the spirit of following Jesus, humble, yet strengthened in Him. How do we surrender ourselves to the will and purposes of God? By continually saying no to our human, sinful nature. If you read Galatians 5, verses 19 to 21, just before Paul gets to explaining the fruit of the Spirit, he first talks about the acts of flesh. It's not a pretty list, but this is what comes from our sinful nature. The next list in verses 22 and 23 is much more heartening to read. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. We want to be all these things, but the problem comes when we believe that fruit-bearing is simply a matter of our will, of trying to be good, instead of a result of our connection to Christ. It's the fruit of the Spirit, not my fruit, not your fruit. The only way we can truly win the fight of saying no to our sinful nature and letting the Holy Spirit work in us is by laying down our fruit of good intention and self-improvement, and by echoing what David says, "You are my Lord. There is no good for me outside of you." We bear fruit when we are grafted to Jesus, the true vine. Jesus makes us new, abiding in Him. Resting, dwelling, remaining in Him is the source of our goodness, the source of our fruit. So let our prayers this week be, Father, help us bear fruit that glorifies You by laying aside our will for Yours.